everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. See lots of familiar faces and new faces. Welcome to the Nation's Talkback. Hi, my name is Dena Hardee. I am an arts administrator and theater producer based in New York City. I'm also a longtime friend of Jonathan Hogue and have collaborated with him on various projects over the years. So I'm thrilled to be here to moderate this discussion tonight and to have the opportunity to hear from the creative team, the cast, and those who worked really hard on this reading of The Nations. So before I introduce the team, and I see a lot of you guys are on here, so thank you for joining us. I'm gonna go through a couple of housekeeping items, and then we can get started with the talkback. So before we get started, I'm going to start off with some questions that I will be asking the team, and then we're going to move into an open Q&A time to hear questions from our Zoom audience. So if you are listening and you think of a question, jot it down. We'll have some time at the end to hear from the audience and for you guys to ask questions of the Nations team. So in order to facilitate that Q&A part more smoothly, I'm going to just ask that everyone keep themselves muted. And then if you have a question, if you can just use a little raise your hand function on Zoom, and I will call on you to unmute, and then you can ask away. You're also welcome to type your question into the chat. I'll go through those as well at the end. And then lastly, one thing I just want to address, as you know, we all just watched the play. So the play, of course, is based upon experiences of modern day Christians. And of course, Jonathan uses that background as perspective for the story. However, we want this to be an open discussion tonight, and we may have some in the audience who identify with a different faith or religious background or none at all. So to keep from alienating anyone, if you can just be thoughtful and respectful in choosing the terminology and language that you use to articulate your answers or the questions that you have for the team, that would be extremely helpful. So I think that's it. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce everyone. So I'm just going to say their names and what their involvement is with the project. If you guys could just give like a wave so everyone can see you, that would be fantastic. Great. So of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Jonathan Hogue is our playwright. Round of applause for Jonathan. We also have Noel MacDuffie, the director. We have Andrea Gores, our editor and sound designer. And then from the cast tonight, we have joining us Maria Reginaldi, who plays Rebecca. We have Colby Hamann, who plays Daniel. We have Daniela Gonzalez y Perez, who plays Grace. And we have Joshua Carter, who plays Shane. So claps for everybody. Yay. All right. Jonathan, you're in the hot seat. I'm going to ask you questions first. So to get started, so before we jump to The Nations, the play, I would love to hear a part of your story, your experiences. I know you've told me personally, but for those of you who are just getting to know you, could you give some background on your history with missions and humanitarian work, and how it relates to your journey as a playwright? So basically, like, when did this play come from? Like, where in your life did it come from?
Yeah. I come from a family of missionaries. My grandparents on my mom's side were church planters in Honduras. My mom was born on the mission field. And so, you know, my dad works for World Vision. And then when I was in second grade, actually when I was a baby, after being born in the States, we went straight to Nicaragua. We were there for 2 years. Went to Uganda for a little bit, all when I was a baby. I don't remember any of this. And then in second grade, went back to Nicaragua, was there for 2 years. And so throughout my childhood, I've had kind of this background in missions culture, other cultures, that kind of thing. And in college, I sort of found this trip. I was coming out of undergrad. I had moved to New York City, and I saw this. I had a friend who had done this trip. That was an 11-month missions trip that went to a different country every month around the world. So we were gone for a year. We spent 3 months or sorry, 4 months in Latin America, 4 months in Southeast Asia, and then 3 in Eastern Africa. And so that experience was 2016 to 2017. I was with a group of about 43 people, all from the States, and we all basically went to a different country every month, broke up into small teams of 6 or 7, like in the show, and did ministry within a certain spot in that country. Then we would congregate, move to the next country, split up, do ministry, and then come back in. And so, so I have this kind of this whole year's worth of experiences doing this. I've done a couple other trips since then. But yeah, I mean, I just have so much that I've kind of been processing about missions in general, and where my relationship to it as a Christian, and also aware of some of the commonly identified issues with short-term missions and whatnot. And so that kind of wrestling lasted for a couple of years after my trip, and eventually led into, do I write a book? Who wants to read a book? I don't care, But I was taking a playwriting class, and I thought, well, let's process this through playwriting and see what happens. And then kind of, yeah, that's where we're here. So.
Perfect to segue into my next question. So when did you start writing this play, and I guess timeline-wise? And can you just describe a little bit about your process, and kind of how it's evolved over time? I know you sent me a draft of it in the summer, and of course I loved it, but it's changed since then. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I started taking some classes with Primary Stages in New York with ESPA. I have a couple of my classmates in here. Hi. But it started as just kind of like a class workshop where you bring in 10 pages, and I kind of had different scenes and different things I wanted to explore, and so I would just bring in 10 pages here and there. And I kind of had written it as sort of an ensemble piece. I was interested in kind of the team dynamics, and I didn't realize that it was gonna become this Rebecca Daniel discussion. I really thought it was just gonna be sort of like seeing all the different aspects of this, but I felt like to get to the core arguments, I needed people to really like articulate that, and Daniel was sort of the one to kind of change things, and so then Rebecca as the team leader kind of became the antagonist protagonist. They're both kind of both of them, in a way.
Right.
But yeah, so I took a couple classes with ESPA. I had a first draft of it. I think I started this in fall 2019, I believe. Yeah, 2019. And then the pandemic hit, and I had a first draft of the show. It was like, I think 200 pages or something nuts. Like, it was way too long. And then I took a second class over the summer virtually during the pandemic, and had an awesome teacher that had some great suggestions on places to cut and to streamline and to kind of get to the meat of the show. And so yeah, since last summer I've kind of been like, hacking away at it, retooling things, adding new material, taking out stuff, kind of like figuring out what I want to say. Still in that process now. This is the first production of it, but still technically a reading. Yeah, I mean, it's just, every time I read it and have people reading it, I learn something new about it, and yeah, so.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think every time it happens, it's gonna change. Like, you're gonna catch things, and it's really cool. So I guess compared to other shows you've written, again, piggybacking off of your process, did you find your writing to be different as you're living through the pandemic? I guess all of our lives have changed a lot, so that's kind of a silly question. But as far as like sitting down and writing this play, compared to other shows you've written when life was normal.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I mean, I think having the ability to do readings over Zoom has been like hugely beneficial, because I've been able to do like 3 or 4 when ordinarily it takes so much time to try to get people to come over and all read it together, and then it just feels so easy to kind of go up on Zoom and just have people read it, and
Yeah.
and people were like hungry to do that too. So I'm like, oh, thank God, like people actually want to do this. At the beginning, yeah, I don't know. I think it's been such a weird, chaotic year, especially for in the Christian community. There's just been a lot of stuff that's like getting uprooted, and stuff that's, we didn't realize was problematic until now, or maybe we did realize it and now we're talking about it. But there's stuff in the play that I feel like I've realized. At one point I was sort of like, who's going to want to see this play right now? But I don't know. There's aspects of this that I feel like are a little bit speaking to the times in terms of how do we respond to stuff that is a little bit more complicated than we think it is. And so that's less the pandemic, more just, where we're at as a country, I guess. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Cool. Okay. So going back to your personal experience, in missions and humanitarian work, what have been your feelings, I guess, as far as working on something like this that draws so much from your personal experience versus working on something that's conceptual, or maybe it's a parody, whatever that may be, that's something new or borrowed. How does that differ from like doing something that's like your story?
Yeah, I think it's easy because I sort of know the voices of these characters. I would hesitate to say that any of these characters are based on real people so much as it's based on the way that people I know talk, And so I think what was great about this is feeling like I know the language, I know the rhythms, I know the common phrases, I know the psychology. And so I think that was easy for me to be able to kind of get into that, more so than other projects. I think also there's elements of my own kind of inner dialogue that's woven through Rebecca and Daniel, kind of my own personal debates. I'm like, how do I solve this debate? So I think that's super helpful. Because I think, yeah, I don't know, like I'm like nervous to see what it would look like to write something that's not coming from me. I mean, for those of you that don't know, I've also written a parody of Stranger Things that's also very funny and very, very, very different than this. So anyway, that does not come from my life, but it does come from an obsession. So maybe there's commonalities. But yeah. Anyway, so I think just like knowing this world so well, it was easy to come up with ideas of like what to talk about, what moments happen, and pulling from aspects of my trip. There was just like a wealth of experiences, and I probably could write 2 more plays just with ideas that I had at the beginning. So
I think it's so special and unique to be able to draw from that. And it's so deeply rooted in your history too. So cool. All right. As far as like character, because you kind of mentioned Daniel and Rebecca, are there other aspects of some of the characters that you personally resonate with?
I think Rebecca.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I think Rebecca and Daniel I resonate with
the most.
It's funny because I think I wrote the show from Daniel's perspective first, and then I found myself writing from Rebecca's perspective, and it kind of was like, I don't know which one is me at this point. I think I don't know. Both of them, I feel like I watched their debates and I'm just like, I agree with both of them in certain ways, and I can't figure out which one I'm with. I think I don't know. I like the ministry skit scene in on my trip. Like I was Kendall, I was the one trying to teach everyone the skit. So like I resonate with that too. So
right.
I think there's a little bit in everyone in the show that I can click with. So
that makes sense. I'm gonna give you a little break. I'm actually gonna ask Noel some questions real quick. Hi, Noel.
Hi, Dena. How are you?
Doing good.
Nice.
So hear from you. How did you get connected with this project, and kind of what drew you to working with Jonathan on this?
I actually discovered this through True, which is Theater Resources Unlimited, has a writer-director meetup, which is an opportunity for directors to kind of sort through when you find scripts that seem interesting to you, and then you reach out and work, have sort of a first meeting with that writer. And I had done one in 2017, and then I thought, that was a lot of fun. I should do it again. So I actually did 2 plays because somebody dropped out at the last minute. So I did Jonathan and another play. I mean, I was really drawn to how beautifully the voices come through. The ear for dialogue was so clear. That was sort of the initial hook. And then from there, I'm just someone who's very interested in people really digging into ideas. I was very interested in how much, how thoughtful everyone was in this, and how rich the perspectives were. And, it's a lot of shows of this kind, or not this kind, but more commonly you'd run across someone having a crisis of faith, and I'm done, and I'm leaving the church, I'm leaving Brigadoon, and I'm never coming back.
Right.
And I was really, I really liked that was not what we were talking about. That was not on the table. We were really wrestling with our personal perspective to God, and our personal perspective to the concept of missions. I find millennials, I'm an old guy-ish, but I find the self-awareness of millennials to be very interesting as well. And I liked that was part of this, that sense of, wait a minute, what is this world and why is it this way? And that willingness to question your own self, which I didn't experience a great deal in my own generation, I find very interesting. So there was a lot there. It's really like catnip. There wasn't really much preventing me from wanting to work on this.
That's awesome. I love to hear it.
And Jonathan is, such a charming, good-looking young man.
Of course.
Right?
Awesome. Well, so we're a year into the pandemic, and this is kind of a question for you and Andrea as sound editor. Have you done something like this? I've seen over the past few months some Zoom readings, and I have to say, and I haven't told Jonathan this yet, this is probably the best reading I've seen / experienced, just as far as quality and just the way it all came together. It's really impressive. So as far as directing, and then also sound editing, talk about that experience, like doing this type of thing versus obviously in person when we would normally do that.
Right. I'm just going to jump and clarify before Andrea has to. Andrea did the video and sound editing, so she did it all.
Thank you.
So she has strong presence.
Amazing.
This was, I've seen a few Zoom things. We knew from get-go that we wanted to make this interesting. Zoom fatigue is something that's a real thing. It's a very talky play, so to me it was very important that it had some sort of a visual reality, that it wasn't just people locked in boxes going at it, that we have some sort of a sense of the setting. I have a very clear image in my head of what this would look like on stage, which was very helpful when I'm like, okay, well, how can we translate that in some way to this rectangle that we're staring at and can't get free of. And then, I set up a bunch of pictures that we would work from. And then, Andrea would come along and make magical, brilliant choices, and everything would look so much better. And it was actually a real pleasure to work with both Andrea and Jonathan in terms of using what we had to use theatrical language and film language to a degree to make this as interesting as we could. What do you think about that, Andrea? In your lovely red hoodie.
Thank you. Well, I agree. I think you stated it perfectly. I think it was a very collaborative effort. We played off of each other's ideas, and really, Noel gave an outline of sort of the blocking in this world of Zoom that we're in, and then I worked with that, and then checked back in, and then we did, revisions, and then got it to a place that felt really clear to us. And yeah, it was fun to kind of explore and experiment. And I've been at this. I mean, this is a total pandemic specialty career for me.
Busy this year.
Yeah, but I mean, I wasn't doing this before, so it's just like it's been a year-long study hall for me to kind of just like, okay, how do I do that, and then like really, and then just keep that in my back pocket for the next job, which is coming up, and then the next one coming up, and it's just. But then again, like, who knows how long that's going to exist, and will there be like a hybrid after this? Which is an interesting question I'm thinking about every day. But yeah, it's been a really interesting experience, and I learned a lot, and I really appreciated working with everybody on this. Everybody was awesome.
And I want to jump into, just found out this 2 days ago, but Andrea also is a Broadway actress who had just made her Broadway debut right before the pandemic. So pivoting to new careers here for a weird time.
Here we
also,
are.
Yeah. So just amazing how this community has evolved in the last last year.
We're all learning new skills.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you both. I want to just kind of throw out a question for any of the cast members. I know you all have different backgrounds and experiences, of course. Does anyone want to kind of speak about their the aspects of the story or the characters that kind of resonate with you in this play? Anybody? Don't all jump at once.
I can start. I found this like really interesting because I personally feel like me as a person, me as Colby, resonated kind of more with Rebecca, so Maria's character. In just the personality of like the, go get them, like stay positive for everyone, like you really just got to put your best foot forward and things will fall into place after that. And so it was interesting getting to play like this different side of things, of like, someone who is still very positive and a very like grounded person, but is very much more like thoughtful, and when he sees something that maybe is not quite what he thinks it should be, actually takes a step in speaking up about it and trying to fix it, or seeing if it can be fixed in any way.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Any other actors want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I read the script, and I literally I started it one night at like 9, and then I had to put it down, and then I went back to bed and was about to go to bed at like 11:30, and I just had to finish it. And I stayed up all night because I thought I was reading my own thoughts. I really did. When I was reading the role of Rebecca, I was just profoundly touched, because this, going through this question of I believe so much, and now here I feel like it's not real. And then having to humble yourself by saying, but there's no way I can just decide that. Yeah, I just really related to Rebecca. And then also, she's in this position of leadership and has to a degree, put on a kind of a face of I've got it all together, yet internally is just struggling. That's, that quite pretty much feels like my everyday life sometimes, you know. I'm sure everyone can relate to that to some degree. So I think she's a really relatable character in that way. And what I really admired about her was, you know, ultimately she says, but I just cannot accept that this is wrong. I cannot accept that this is wrong, even though I am struggling so much. And even though I might put on a face, you know, I have to believe that there's something bigger than me. And that's kind of, I think that's what my faith is. And that's what I cling to. So yeah, it was just a really beautiful experience, getting to feel seen and understood by Jonathan and this character, and then Noel's direction, like, yes, felt very, very seen and understood. So it was a really, really big blessing to play this role. But yeah.
I love that.
I had the connection I made was the danger of asking questions when you're not supposed to, because I feel like we all harbor those questions, those things that might prove us wrong in our faith and what we believe. And what I got from all of the characters was when they were able to ask questions, the answers came. And to me, in my interpretation, I felt like that purpose and longing was fulfilled when they let go. And so I really resonate with the questions. Everybody has those little questions in their head, but they know they're going to get hit on the wrist, you know, you're going to get hit on the wrist for that. So
I love that. Yeah, the questions are important. Daniela?
I can say something. For me, Rebecca's monologue towards the end, when they're having that big blowout moment between the two characters, when she talks about the voices in her head, like when you're like, whether you're going through faith or your own religion, or even just asking, I know some people ask the universe, sometimes I do as well, for like signs or answers. And it's like, who are we really talking to? Are we really talking to something outside of us, or are we talking to something that's us or deeper than us, within us? You know, who are we talking to? So that part really, I think about that often, because I'll find answers whether I'm talking to God or the universe, and sometimes I hear answers and I'm like, is that, who's saying that? So it's like, who are you listening to? And is it just a deep-rooted sense of yourself, or is it something that's connected with everybody else? So that's something that resonated with me.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you all for sharing. And anyone can ask questions of the cast as well when we switch over to that portion. I actually have one more question, and directing at Jonathan, but really anyone can answer. I think, you know, the dialogue surrounding the value in short-term missions or humanitarian work, anything altruistic like that, can seem kind of controversial. I think there's a lot of heavy opinions on both sides. So for you, has it been difficult to kind of sit in that tension throughout this process? Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the tension is between knowing that there is good work happening out there, and there are like people who really are invested in communities and helping people, and you know, I mean, you know, my parents are both that, and I can't you know, tear any of their work down, or my grandparents. So, but at the same time, I think what was interesting to me about this play was zeroing in on sort of this new wave of short-term missions in intersection with kind of like the millennial Gen Z kind of needing to find something fulfilling, you know? And I think because I think for me, when I went on my trip, I remember feeling God, I know that I want to do this for you, but I also know I want to do it for me too, you know, and knowing that there was that tension inherently, but not necessarily realizing how deeply I needed this to mean something, and how deeply I needed this to change my life or you know, whatever, until I got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting what I thought I was going to get out of this, and this is scaring me. And then realizing was that why I did this? Mm-hmm. So I think, I don't know, I think it's hard because I guess part of this was me wanting to find an answer. And I think what's interesting for me is the beauty in the tension, knowing that that's a lot of what life is feeling you know, you're doing something you think is good, but also are you doing it for the right reasons? And also there are times where you're doing something good that does sort of hurt someone else, and is that okay? And like, and I don't really have an answer for that, but I sort of feel like that's something that has at least given me peace to address that there is tension and that there can be two different perspectives that sort of also are worth hearing and valid.
Yeah, like both can be true at the same time. I love that. And I mean, it's part of being human, really, is that tension. Great. Well, I'm out of questions. If we want to switch it over, if anyone has any questions from our audience, if you could just press raise hand, or I'm going to look in the chat and see if we have anything. And John, have you seen anyone that I don't see? Let me know. Okay. Question for later from J.R. Williams. Excuse me if I said that wrong. Trying to impose Christianity, especially a harsh evangelical version of Christianity, on people of another culture seems insensitive. Why not help people with what they actually need, but leave out religion and respect their own religious traditions? What's the point of coupling assistance with religion? Anybody? It's very, yeah.
In some ways, I think your position and what you're there for, it's almost objective, kind of like I was in the way of somebody who should have walked in the street and should have got hit by the car, right? Mm-hmm. But my position and my placement, like I didn't have to be there. I didn't have to make a difference, but my placement changed that person's life. Same thing, like my old math teacher is here from high school, Miss Johnson. Her placement in my life and being there every day after school and every day before school, she may have been tired. She may not have even felt like being there. Yeah. She may have had a bad attitude, but it didn't matter. It got me out of high school. So I think the reasons why people go and they touch a life and that life survives in that one little moment, it's kind of objective. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And if you believe in God, it's kind of the same thing, whether you're a jerk like David and you steal somebody's wife and kill their husband and do all this other crappy stuff, your placement is what makes the difference. Mm. So I think, in other words, the religion and the trying to get people to believe, it's just the placement, and whatever's you're being used by in that moment has placed you to make that difference. So somebody does live, and then someone becomes a doctor, and that person takes a boil off of someone's neck that saves their life. It's placement. Mm.
Wow, thank you for sharing, Joshua. Anybody else want to take a stab at it? All right, I see one hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute for Miss or Maureen Condon.
Hi, I just want to say congratulations to all of you. I thought it was a beautifully done piece. Jonathan, I thought you articulated so many aspects of the questions everybody asks in their life, like, why am I here and what am I doing and where is it going? And I mean, you did it from a millennial point of view, but it reminded me so much. I graduated from college in the 70s. We were asking all those same questions then and still asking them now. I think that what you wrote was profound, and it's the human experience, even you know, beyond any particular religion. So congratulations. I thought the actors were great and the editing was wonderful too, and the direction. So just congrats to everybody. Nice work.
Thank you. All right, it looks like there's one more hand raised. C, there's no name, just C.
Yeah, hey, sorry. I'm using my wife's phone, and I have a question. I thought you guys did a wonderful job. I have directed 12 short-term mission trips, and just from student debriefings and evenings together, those were exact snapshots of what some of the students feel. So that was really well done. Some of the tensions and questions that, you know, students will ask. I'm a science guy, and I know that you all from the artistic end, it's a goal to raise questions and to make people think. And clearly some of the things that made me think was, you know, how many of those tensions could be answered by a deeper theology How many of the questions are, problems of postmodernism? I think that it's beautiful that young people really want genuine experiences, but at the same time, sometimes it's all about their experience and not about some greater absolute or something along those lines. But I guess what I would ask is from either the writer or the other folks, are there solutions that you would like people to come up with from the questions, or even other questions, because I'm a little slow and not that artistic? What are some of the questions that you would, say, hey, here's something to go study or ruminate on or find the answers to? I'm done.
You want to stab at that, or?
Sure. I mean, I think, I'm asking the questions right now of myself and trying to figure out where my answers are and where I go from here. I sort of feel like writing this play and just asking the questions in general was sort of where I left it, but I don't feel like I can. So, I think I think there's a lot of, I don't know. I think there's, I think that there's a lot of people my age that go into trips like this that sort of have, they have reasons for doing trips like this, and some of them are good reasons, some of them are just sort of like diverting baggage or diverting from trauma or something that they don't know how to deal with, and so they go to something like this to kind of like give them purpose and meaning. And I think that's, I know in my trip I was sort of challenged to like realize like, wow, like doing missions does not have to be like this is not the perfect Christian life, and then everyone else at home that's not doing Christianity or that is doing Christianity is doing it wrong. I think like realizing that there's that, like recognizing sort of like getting deep into like, why do I do the things that I do? Like, why do I believe the things that I believe? Even, Rebecca hearing the voices is something that I deal with sometimes, where it's like, I've heard the voice of God at certain points in my life, and then I also hear voices that get me really confused and like, where is this coming from? Are these narratives that I learned like, throughout my upbringing? And I think I sort of feel like this is stuff that like my generation is really starting to like explore. Why are we doing the things that we're doing? Why do we have things set up a certain way? Why is evangelical culture going one direction that we don't want to go? And I think that's kind of like, I don't know, just like starting the journey towards asking questions and getting deeper to like, why do we do the things that we do, and making sure that we're like putting our hearts in the right place with things. I think is hopefully where this goes. But it's really just kind of an individual journey is what I feel. So anyone else?
My corollary to that is, a dead religion is a religion that is just a series of commands with no interaction. And I think the thing that really drew me to this was everyone is personally struggling, because if you don't have a personal connection, I mean, that's what Christianity is all about, right? That's why we're not worshiping Zeus, because, back in time, that personal connection to the deity is what drew people into it. And if that's not still happening, then we got problem. But what Jonathan's play was saying to me is like, no, it's still happening. And it's happening in that uniquely millennial way of like, what is this? Let me back up and look at it and see how I feel about it and fit into it. And that essential personal life, how do I feel about this? What is my personal link to God? That's the essential thing. So there isn't necessarily, any question is worth ruminating on. There isn't a question that everyone needs to think about. It's just like you find the thing and you're like, this is what I want to pull my thread on. So, and you see it differently. You see Daniel is pulling on his thread and saying like, no, the setup doesn't feel right to me. I have to go and find the right setup for me, but he's still doing it in his realm of God. And Rebecca is doing the same thing. She's like, I need to find it in my way. If I press through, which is not a wrong strategy, right? Pressing through, I mean, as I said to Jonathan, I was like, I don't know the religion so much, but I can tell you there's a point in every show where you're like, this it's not going to work. I don't think it's going to work, people. And then you just keep going because that's what you do. And then suddenly you're like, no, it does work. The show works. And, you know, so Rebecca's solution is also very, very valid. So it's that aliveness that I think is so wonderful about this theatrical experience.
Thank you. Yeah, well put. Anybody else before? I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anyone have any questions? Did I miss one?
I think we have one more.
Thank you. Let's go to Robert first.
Two. We have two. Okay.
Two.
First of all, I want to just say good job and congratulations to everyone involved. This was really, really great. My question is for Jonathan. My question is, well, first, I just want to comment and say that I write Christian content for like, you know, screenplays and series and all that. So one of the problems that a lot of Christian writers face is, you know, what kind of content can you include, right? And what are some things you might want to stay away from? There's a lot of topics that a lot of Christian writers they struggle to include in their work, or how to portray it in some way, right? And I think one of the things I really appreciated about this play was that you tackled a lot of different subjects, a lot of different topics in this. I remember though you tackled white privilege, right? You tackled you kind of, it was sort of maybe I'm gonna admit I only watched the first half. I'm still watching through it. I joined in late, so I kind of ran out of time, but I'm still watching through it. So I don't know if you fully tackle this, but like doubting, questioning, you know, you tackled a lot of different topics within this play, and I thought that was really good. You know, kudos to you for including a lot of different topics. You know, and I just found it interesting that, you know, these characters, they went to go speak to other people, but you have them questioning themselves as well. You know, so I just thought that was interesting. My question is, when you were writing this, were there like certain topics or like certain aspects within this that you questioned if you should include it or not? You know, and what, you know, why did you choose to include certain things to talk about? Because one thing I really liked about this too was that a lot of the conversation really felt organic, right? It was just really back and forth between characters. Like I was watching them and I'm like, oh, I can totally like see like 6 missionaries just hanging out, talking about, you know, this kind of stuff, right? My question is, did you struggle to like include certain things because this was a Christian play, right? A Christian-based play. And I guess a follow-up to that question is, what were some topics that you really wanted to include, that you really wanted to get across to your audience?
That's a good question. I think I'm sure I would have a great answer for this once I like really think about it, because I have to like go back to like the early drafts. But I mean, I think later in the process I was sort of like tempted to like involve politics in this, or like have ties to like what's going on in the States, but I just, it felt like that was gonna veer too far into something that I wasn't gonna end up fully talking about or addressing, and I feel like that's its own thing. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think there's so one of my choices from the very beginning that I was pretty set on was not showing us any of the people that they were ministering to, and also not saying what country they were in. So I didn't want to get into any sort of like actual like I think I initially thought it was about, you know, kind of, if anyone's read like When Helping Hurts, or like, you know, talking about like really getting into like, you know, going into communities and really like the white savior dependency, or you know, I wanted to get into that, but I felt like at the core of this, it was really about the team dynamics, and it was really about faith. And I think that is an aspect that I just kind of, I touched on because it colors sort of the discussion, but it's not the discussion on the whole. So yeah, but I think, you know, as a writer, as a Christian who is also a writer, and sort of, I think I was always scared of writing about my experience and my faith because it felt like I would come off too preachy, and I would sort of alienate a lot of my audience by being so. And for me, I read a couple of plays, or saw a couple of plays actually. Lucas Nath's The Christians, which if anyone's read is one of my favorite plays, was sort of formative for me. Just kind of saying like, here are people who believe something, and not everybody believes the same aspect of this, and it's actually a big deal. And I never realized that that could be interesting to people outside of Christianity, but that sort of was like realizing that there's sort of an us and them mentality in the church. You know, it's like if you're saved, like you're like you got it right, and if you're not, you got it wrong, and everyone else is sort of just like lost in the world and doesn't know what they're doing. And I think for me, realizing that like I as a Christian am also just as much a human as anybody else around me, and that just as much like fallible and complicated and uncertain about things. I think addressing that and being able to like be honest about that aspect of my own experience and still having faith is sort of something that has been, I don't know, unique to what I want to write and explore, I guess, as a writer. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I will talk more. So I'm sure I have other stuff I can say, but.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to take one more question from Ivan, and then since we're coming up on an hour, and then we'll wrap it up. So.
Hi, it's Eben.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a question for Noel. What changes did you do to Jonathan's script to actually adapt it to this, you know, virtual medium?
I didn't make a lot of changes. There were a couple of things where it was clear in a lot of, it was stage directions kind of thing of like, I can't think of an example right now, but there were things where I was like, this isn't going to read. We're not going to see this clearly. Let's like alter this slightly, just so that it becomes clear, given this square field and a square appearing and disappearing. And some of those things developed even more when we got to editing, which I think is always the case when you start to discover what you can do and what you can't do. You know, the lights going out was something that Andrea had a way better idea than I did. So, you know, I had everyone snap off their lights and I was going to live with that. And Andrea was like, well, let's just go to the lights out. But why don't we do that? So there was things of that nature. Just if there was a visual moment and I knew that was never going to read, then we had to make some slight adjustments. I ran all of that past Jonathan, which he either ignored or gave me thumbs up on. But at least, you know, to me, it is always, with any new script, we are a team, we are working together, and everything has to go past everybody else so that we all know what's kind of going on. And I think we did that, guys, didn't we?
You pulled it off.
Yeah.
I just want to just say this too, because I don't know if it was said. The process for this, we had the cast together for a total of 3 days. We did this back in late February. We got everyone on Zoom. The first night was a read through. We talked about the play a little bit. The second day, I think, was mostly choreographing the pantomime, the ministry skit, and then sort of talking through like kind of staging images. But the thing that was recorded was the second reading of the script, and was in fact pretty much all read, people reading from the script. So just the performances from this cast it just blows my mind, because I mean, literally almost no rehearsal with the schedule that we had, and just incredible work done, and instincts, and direction, and it's pretty amazing. Just the everyone's work that came into this, and passion, and so just wanted to give that credit too.
Bravo to everyone. Yeah, absolutely.
The feedback I would like to give is especially to Andrea, because I thought, I don't know if it was her idea or yours, Noel, but I thought the way you handled that people are in different rooms was really excellent. That was well done.
Thank you. That was I came up with the initial maps, and then Andrea actually invented the white line. The white line actually solved a lot of visual and sort of packing problems. People getting packed too far out and the squares getting too small. So anything you want to say about that, Andrea?
No, well, thank you, Eben and Noel. Yeah, I mean, it was, for me, it is collaborative, like we said. So when I'm looking at what I have to work with, and I'm thinking, I'm putting myself outside of my shoes as well. Like, I'm an audience member, so I'm going through it, and I'm like, they go into the common room. I'm like, I need something that tells me we're in the common room and we're in the bedrooms, because otherwise it just felt kind of like, oh, I don't know. So ran it by Noel and Jonathan, and they were like, yeah, cool. So then we just kind of collaborated on that quite a bit and got it to where it is now.
We also wanted to make it clear that it was a reading.
Yeah.
Like, it might be a flashy reading, but it is a reading, and I didn't want people thinking like, oh, they tried to fully produce it and they didn't do it. Like, no. It's a nicely done reading. But so it was essential that we kept the stage directions in there, and like which ones we used, which ones we didn't, so that it was clear it's a reading. We get Jonathan's voice, and that's.
Yeah, it's different when you have a staged reading where you can have people sitting and then standing and going to the center, like get music stands, all that. So we did have to create some sort of differentiation there.
It was so well done.
Thanks.
Amazing. Well, to wrap up, I actually have one final question for Jonathan. Can you tell us, if you're able, what is next for this play? Or if you can't tell us, what are your dreams for the next step?
Oh, I have so many dreams. No. I don't know if I can announce. I guess I can announce this. I am in talks with. I feel like I'm not allowed to announce this yet, but I'm just gonna say it. I am in talks with some producers in LA to have a stage production of this in the summer. Of course, we're waiting to see with COVID how things work, and it's very, 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 very early conversations. But yeah, so this has been submitted to some festivals, and would love to just see a stage production of this eventually. So if you know anyone that has a theater and wants to do a show, I have a script. So, but yeah, I just want people to see it and do it, and now I have it on video, so I can just send people the link too, which is really exciting. So
valuable. Oh, yay. Well, thank you everybody for spending your Friday night with us. To all the creative team and the cast, and of course Jonathan. I hope everyone has a good night. Thank you all. Bye.